I'm Nichelle Poston, along with Mark Eichman. We're here at Legislative Hall in Dover. Governor Markell has completed his 7th State of the State address. We'll show you some highlights.
We'll also have a reaction from members of the General Assembly. Are they in a mood to act on the plan the governor's outlined for 2015? We will see. Shirley?
Mark, also this week, we update the impact on businesses through the Affordable Care Act. And we'll report on how one act of kindness has changed the way soldiers get mail. First, your public media news magazine starts now.
First look is the first message from the governor. We're here in Legislative Hall to review the speech and provide reaction. Governor Markell addressed a joint session of the General Assembly from the Senate chambers.
The state of our state is stronger because 40,000 more Delawareans are working today than in 2010. Our job growth has been better than the national average for 24 straight months, and for the last 12 months, it has been the 4th fastest in the country. So today, I'm announcing 3 parts of our strategy to fulfill the Delaware promise. First, we'll create an initiative called Pathways to Prosperity, which will establish partnerships with Delaware employers, our colleges, and our K-12 system to prepare students for a bright future in key industries. High school students will take hundreds of hours of specialized instruction and hands-on training. They'll graduate with industry-recognized certificates and college credits. This fall, we will launch the Pathways statewide for the IT and hospitality industries. We'll also expand to southern Delaware the manufacturing pathway we started last year with Colonial and Newcastle County VOTEC districts. Communities across the state, from western Sussex to Wilmington, have urged that we re-examine the way we pay for education. In the coming months, at the recommendation of House Education Committee Chair Earl Jakes, President Blevins, Speaker Schwarzkopf, and I will create a school funding task force to make recommendations that would spur more innovation in our schools and address inequities for our neediest students. We can't prepare our students to seize the opportunities of a new economy with a funding system that was developed 3/4 of a century ago. This chunk of concrete came loose from the I-95 bridge over the Brandywine River this summer. Similar pieces have fallen from 141 onto the shoulder of I-95 and from the DuPont Road Bridge over the East Penn Railroad. And these are not the only examples of roads and bridges falling apart. We must do better. We have been talking about this for too many years. As the 2011 Transportation Trust Fund Task Force report made clear, the condition of our roads and bridges will deteriorate without more investment. It is that simple. I am urging you to support a rapid, fact-based, intensive examination of public safety strategies in the city. The entire Wilmington delegation is sponsoring a joint resolution to establish a commission co-chaired by Public Safety Secretary Lou Shalero and Newcastle County Public Safety Director Joe Bryant. Working with an outside expert, the Shalero-Bryant Commission will make recommendations that can be acted on by the city and by the General Assembly this session if necessary. Its success will require a joint commitment from city and state leaders, and I thank the mayor for his support.
As you know, WHYY broadcast Governor Markell's speech in its entirety last night. You can find it online at whyy.org/first. The Delaware way has always been that both parties look for a silver lining in the governor's message. This year was no exception.
Well, once again, I think the governor has carved out a really good blueprint for the legislature to get to work and try to bring it to fruition.
His state of state was so full of hope an opportunity for Delawareans, and I'm terribly excited. In all the years that I've been here, this is probably one of the best speeches I've ever heard.
Generally, it was fairly subdued. I mean, there weren't any great new initiatives in there. I think that's a reflection of sort of a slow economy, continues to be a slow economy. Specific job growth numbers notwithstanding.
We're going to hold his feet to the fire, but the main thing is the money that's coming in to make sure that it gets to the programs that it's been allocated for, and that deals with the Joint Finance Committee.
Our coverage of reactions to this speech has also been reported on your home for Delaware News, newsworks.org/Delaware. Next on the agenda here in Dover, the budget. We'll have more on that next week.
Coming up on First, the simple act of getting mail to soldiers at wartime wasn't always that simple. We have the story of when that all changed, and a tour of a museum attic on First Experience.
First continues in our Wilmington studios, and we turn our focus to the ever-changing healthcare system. How businesses deal with the Affordable Care Act is becoming clearer. Ilana Gordon from the WHYY Health and Science Desk is here. Hi, Ilana.
Hi, Shirley.
How are businesses transitioning?
Well, in Delaware, it's been a pretty tough transition for many businesses. This story involves companies with fewer than 50 employees. And to help illustrate the situation, I bring you the tale of two companies. The first is Falk Lawn and Equipment in Wilmington. Philip Sicorso is the general manager.
It's a third-generation family business. My grandfather started in 1954.
Sicorso says the business has grown from a mom-and-pop shop to an 8-man operation, and they've always offered insurance to those workers.
It was something we were pretty proud of. I mean, it was, you don't make a lot of money in this business, but it was something we always thought was an incentive to stay at Falk Lawn. When we always provided what we thought was a generous plan.
And the second company is Lavenberg Medical Group, which has a location in Newark. Dr. Douglas Lavenberg started this ophthalmology practice 2 decades ago.
We're a multi-specialty small practice, but it's a very family-oriented practice. So most of our patients have been in our practice for over 20 years.
He, too, has always offered insurance to his 29 employees.
Because they're very valuable to me, and they're like my family.
But both Lavenberg and Sicorso faced some tough decisions this past year when they got their new estimates for health insurance. For Lavenberg and his employees, premiums almost doubled.
And they just got sticker shock. We just didn't realize why would this jump so much.
It would cost his practice $30,000 a month.
Now, I've shouldered those prices for the most part, but I can no longer continue to pay that amount.
Over in Wilmington, Sicorso was also in for a rude awakening when his rates came in.
You're kind of nervous when you're opening it because you're not sure. You've heard so many things, and then when you open it and you see what's there, it was a bit of a shock. He was facing a 40% increase, or about $1,000 more a month in expenses. For me, that's the difference between life and death sometimes with a small business.
So what's going on?
There's a lot of anxiety about the transition because it's the unknown.
Nick Moriello heads Health Insurance Associates in Newark. He says a lot of small businesses in Delaware are facing rate hikes, but it's not across the board.
So we've seen increases as high as 110%, and we've seen some that decreased, and everything in between. There hasn't really been a norm or an average yet.
Moriello says a big reason for the shakeup has to do with new federal rules that kicked in this year for small businesses when it comes to determining insurance rates and benefits packages.
These plans cover more items than they used to cover, and they no longer factor health. So folks in the past might have gotten a discount if they had a very healthy population of employees. That's not happening now.
The new way of calculating rates only factors age and tobacco use. Moriello says that means some businesses are in a better situation now. For others with older employees, it may be worse. Moriello says for those facing high rates, there are some options. Some may also qualify for tax credits. So back to our tale of two companies. What did they do? Dr. Lavenberg says dropping coverage and risking losing his employees was not an option.
A good certified ophthalmic technician can have a job anywhere in a day.
Instead, he found a plan that works price-wise, but it covers less for employees.
And we've had to ask them to shoulder some more of the cost. And some of the employees are single moms, just getting by, and it hurt.
Over at Falk Lawn, Soccorso says the decision was incredibly difficult. He stopped offering health insurance.
It's not the best. Like I said, it was something we did for so long, and my dad did it, my grandfather did it. I mean, it was, you hate to be the one that has to do that.
But this actually didn't turn out all that bad for employees. Soccorso did what Moriello says a lot of companies are considering. He gave everyone a raise, which, unlike paying for healthcare, is taxable. But he then helped employees sign up for individual coverage through Delaware's new online marketplace. And guess what?
For them, it worked out okay because they got very good plans.
For the most part, the coverage was just as good or even better. Soccorso says one concern is that older employees have to pay more for their coverage. But in the end, he says he's okay with how things turned out.
It's not a one-size-fits-all answer. I said, what works for me it may not work for everybody else, for sure.
Ilana, how widespread is it that we are seeing small businesses drop their insurance?
Well, in some ways it's too soon to say. So Nick Moriello, the health broker we heard from, he has about 500 small business clients. He's seen about a third drop coverage so far. But again, we're still getting a feel for how this is all working. On the flip side, Dr. Lavenberg, we heard about how employees are shouldering more of the cost, seeing higher deductible plans. That's a trend we're seeing across the board in health insurance.
A lot more patient responsibility. In your story, you focused on some smaller businesses, but how are larger businesses impacted?
So it's a little bit different in that smaller businesses aren't required to offer health insurance. So they can drop coverage, but with larger ones, they do face penalties for making changes.
And what about individuals? How many Delawareans have signed up through the marketplace?
So as of early January, we've heard about 20,000 people have signed up or re-enrolled in coverage. And again, open enrollment lasts through February 15th. One thing to keep in mind with taxes this year is that if a person doesn't have insurance and doesn't qualify for an exemption, they'll face a fine. And that fine for 2014 is $95 or 1% of a person's annual income. That goes up in 2015 to 2%.
Penalties are a big motivator. Okay, Ilana, thank you so much for the update. Ilana Gorda's reporting can be heard on WHYY-FM 90.9. She's also a part of The Pulse, heard on Fridays at 9 a.m. and Sundays at 10 on WHYY-FM.
For our first person segment this week, we bring in education correspondent Avi Wolfman-Arendt. Avi, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
And you had the chance to sit down with Education Secretary Mark Murphy this week.
I did, and we talked about some of his big policy initiatives, including priority schools.
And the priority schools, 6 Wilmington area schools that the state is really trying to fix, to turn around.
Right, and there are a lot of concerns about the state forcing big changes on local school leaders. I asked Secretary Murphy during our sit-down, is the state moving too fast to push these reforms through?
We absolutely did not move too fast. I think that we have to step back and ask ourselves what our responsibilities are. And our responsibilities are to serve all of our children in our state and to really focus on ensuring every single one of our children walk into a school that is able to meet their needs, is able to be successful, that the children, that the families, that the educators are proud of the incredible work that they are doing, and most importantly, that the children are on a path for success. And so we need to act with urgency in that environment when we have children who are struggling.
I think there's some confusion, and I put myself in this camp, about where this plan comes from. Is it a mandate from the federal government? Like, for example, there is tension in Christina about removing the current school leaders, perhaps. Do you guys have to make changes there in order to fulfill those obligations to the federal government to get the funding you need?
No, we make our decisions about what is best in terms of moving this process forward. And let's talk specifically about the people who are serving our children. Right, we've heard some criticisms about attacks that we're blaming teachers and those types of things. And that is absolutely not the case. But we also at the same time have to say that when we have schools that are struggling, we need to look at every aspect of the school. Everything from the program to the schedule to the budget to the educators. And I do not think it is too much to ask to take a hard look at the quality of teaching that is happening in our classrooms and the quality of leading that is happening in our schools.
I want to ask about Race to the Top, something you've been involved with even before you were in this position. back in the sort of the original application stage, there was all these ambitious goals, and they were specific. 60% on the fourth grade math on the NAEP test would be proficient. The latest numbers we had, I think, from 2013 are where I think we're at 42%. You can go down the list, and it's a similar story. We've made gains, but we haven't sort of gotten close to meeting these really ambitious goals. So I guess I want to ask you, did Race to the Top not work as well as expected, or were these goals sort of meant to be off in the distance, almost unrealistic, unreasonable in a way?
We are all committed to continuing to accelerate the achievement gains. I think it is, those goals are important. It is important that our children reach a level of proficiency in academics where they are ready to be successful beyond high school. And so those goals, while we have not reached all of them, we are excited about the progress we're making, but we're also acting with urgency to continue that progress. And we have seen progress, and we see it every single day in our schools, and we certainly see it year over year. And in fact, a study came out last year talking about even a longer-term trajectory for Delaware, and Delaware is the third fastest improving state in terms of academic achievement over the last 2 decades.
We've heard repeated calls to change the structure of how teachers are compensated in the state, the level at which they're compensated. There was a task force, a General Assembly task force on it. Where does it stand now? I mean, are we near to seeing some real movement on this?
Yes, we have another meeting on Friday, so we are still continuing to talk and to move forward. I think this is incredibly important for the future of the education profession. At the end of the day, what we are trying to accomplish here is we're trying to provide teachers with great compensation levels. And in some way, some of the examples are raising starting salaries. Right? Another example is to provide them with career opportunities, to allow teachers to demonstrate leadership and have leadership responsibilities and roles while staying in the classroom. That a teacher doesn't have to leave the classroom and become an assistant principal in order to earn more money. That we can actually empower our educators to demonstrate leadership in their schools through responsibilities, and we can compensate them for that. This has been a call from the governor for well over a year now, and we have been working significantly on this for months. And so we continue to move forward on this, and I am very hopeful that in the next few months we will have a proposal to consider as a state.
I want to end on this. Just you personally, stepping back from the policy for a second, I want to know what your philosophy is on learning. You know, how do you get someone not just to learn a specific set of standards when they're a kindergartner, but to fall in love with learning so that it becomes a lifelong pursuit?
Yes. It's funny, I have this conversation with my children quite often. I have a 7th grader and a senior in high school, and one of the things that we talk about as a core element is that our children have to have a sense of self-efficacy. They have to believe that you get smart through hard work, and you get smart through effective effort. You're not born smart, you get smart. And that's all about a growth mindset. That they believe that they can grow, that they can improve, that they can put forth that effort. And so learning starts there. If a child doesn't believe that they can learn and that they can make progress, then we're not at a good starting line.
Well, Secretary Murphy, I want to thank you so much for joining us, and look forward to following you in the future.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thanks, Avi. That interview with Secretary Murphy can be found with our first stories at WHYY.org/first. Look at all our shows there, too. Get a sneak preview of our shows through our e-newsletter. All you have to do is sign up online. It's a great way to keep informed.
Nowadays, it's easy to send care packages and letters of support to our troops overseas. But that wasn't always the case. It used to be soldiers could only receive mail specifically addressed to them. But one Dear Abby letter from a Delawarean changed all of that. Here's David Rice's story. In 1967, a 19-year-old David Rice was a private serving in Vietnam. He was drafted.
We were over there doing the best we could. A lot of us weren't volunteering, but he got drafted, so you had to go. And of course, we went.
Far from home, Rice says mail call helps soldiers get through the days.
It meant so much to you to have something from home that you knew somebody was caring about you as much as you were over there doing what you were supposed to be doing.
Some soldiers never received letters, and Rice says they would just stop showing up for mail call.
A lot of them didn't have people at home, and a lot of them didn't want to, let anybody know they were there, because when they came home, they were the baby killer.
Back then, in order for a soldier to get anything, you had to have the soldier's name, rank, service number, complete address, and APO on the mailing label. No exceptions. That is, until Rice stumbled on a Dear Abby column asking what people wanted for Christmas that year.
I wrote her and I said, well, that's all I wanted, to see more smiles on people that didn't have mail. And mail was the main connection with anybody.
He wrote, please have them write to any lonely soldier in care of me, and I'll see that he gets it. Dear Abby published Rice's letter in 900 newspapers across the country with his address, and then...
One Sunday afternoon, I'll never forget it, I received 20,000 letters, and that's mailbag after mailbag after mailbag.
Rice kept a journal of how many letters addressed to any lonely soldier he received and from what states. He tried to match soldiers with letters from their home states as best he could.
That way they would have a connection when they came home. And that's what happened. A lot of the girls wrote to the guys, and some went home and got married.
The sheer volume of mail landed Rice in hot water with the feds. The way he tells it, almost 70,000 letters were sent back stamped, not authorized by the Department of Defense. The feds thought it might have been a money-making scam. All of the stamped letters created a bottleneck at the San Francisco post office, prompting then-Congressman Bob Wilson to get involved. After ensuring that Rice was handling the mail appropriately and that no one else's mail was getting mixed in, the feds had no authority to send the letters back, and the law was changed.
And that's why the anonymous servicemen letter packages, including today, are getting mail without their name, address, and anything on it, just to a serviceman.
Morale grew, and Rice says soldiers lined up when it came time for mail call.
They would go there and they would get either a package or maybe a couple packages, and they'd get a couple letters or something. You could just see the smiles on their face.
Rice put together a scrapbook recounting everything that happened between 1967 and 1968. He donated it in November to the Delaware Public Archives for safekeeping.
The materials that are contained in this portfolio, scrapbook, changed a whole way of doing things with the United States Postal System and the Department of Defense. So this is one more piece of important documentation that has come into us.
I don't think the story will get out to where it needs to get out, to thank the people across the United States, that it is really a item that has been changed. One letter makes a big difference, and that made a big change to all the servicemen.
Rice volunteered for a second tour in 1972. His job? Mail clerk. Rice says they also received packages of Hickory Farms cheese and salami, chocolate chip cookies, chocolate that was melted. They even had a live Christmas tree delivered with water still in the stand.
What's in your attic? Old photos, decorations, old clothes. The Delaware Museum of Natural History has you beat. They house one of the largest natural history collections in North America. The collection is in demand by museums and researchers around the globe. It's a unique collection, and so is this week's first experience as we go upstairs for a tour.
I'm Dr. Jean Woods, and I'm the Curator of Birds and the Director of Collections here at the Delaware Museum of Natural History.
My name is Elizabeth Shea, and I'm the Curator of Mollusks here at the Delaware Museum of Natural History.
The bird collection here at the museum has 112,000 specimens. We have study skins, we have skeletons, and we have eggs, and they're from all over the world. It's the only major natural history collection here in Delaware of birds and mammals. We have the second largest collection of eggs in North America. That's a real unique resource. This is how we know what the different species of animals are in the world and where they're from and what their different appearances are. Today, they continue to be used by researchers from all over the world doing a wide variety of different types of research. The specimens that we have here, many of them are over 100 years old, and there's no way to replace them. We have examples of extinct species. The specimens in museums are all that we have left of those species, and that's the only way to study them.
We have one of the largest collections of mollusks in North America, and mollusks include things like snails and clams and oysters and cephalopods, squids and octopuses. We have over 250,000 lots of shells, and we have maybe over 2 million individual shells is what our best estimate is. We keep them here and we care for them. We make sure that they are digitized. We urge people to come and to use the collection. And so scientists will come and study the collection, or we'll send specimens to them. We have specimens that were collected in the 1970s, 1980s, 1990s, so we can really reach back in time using a collection like this. So it's really an interesting kind of time capsule. You can reach into the past and see how things have changed. I've got a great job. My job is kind of divided between 3 different areas. One is care of the collection. I also work with exhibits and with educational programming. Then the third part, which I really love, is doing the research, being engaged in active research projects that are really, pushing the edges of what it is that we know.
I love working with the specimens, working with the researchers who are doing the research. It's exciting to know that I'm helping them do their research and learn new things about the world of birds. We're trying to preserve a sample of the diversity of life on Earth. And that diversity is changing all the time, and so it's important that we continue to document this as time changed.
This is a tremendous resource that we have here in Delaware. It's a dynamic place. It is constantly moving and changing and evolving, and we're just getting started.
One of the extinct birds you saw in our story is the passenger pigeon. It went extinct in 1914, mainly due to man hunting and eating them. Public tours of the collection will be offered in mid-April. You can sample the collection by visiting the museum any day of the week. Private tours can be arranged by contacting the museum. Go to their website, delmnh.org, to learn more.
Next week on First, we'll check in with a Delaware State University researcher working to find better ways to slow down the adverse effects of Alzheimer's disease. We'll introduce you to 2 couples who hope he is successful.
We'll look for that story and a whole lot more. But that is First for this week. We thank you for watching. For Ilana Gordon, Avi Wolfman-Arendt, Nichelle Polston, and Mark Eichman, I'm Shirley Min. Have a great week.
I had been hoping until the last minute that Taylor Swift would be able to join us today. But fortunately, we have someone even better, and I ask you to join me in recognizing Dover Police Officer Master Corporal Jeff Davis.
Oh, yeah.
That's right, Jeff, shake it off.